On the evening of February 9, 2004, a car was found abandoned on a rural road in New Hampshire. It had struck a snowbank near a sharp curve. The driver was gone. Her name was Maura Murray. Maura was 21 years old. When police arrived at the scene, the vehicle was locked. There were no footprints leading away, no sign of where Maura had gone. Just minutes earlier, a local resident had spoken with her. Maura appeared shaken, but she declined help. She told the witness that roadside assistance was already on the way. By the time police arrived, Maura had vanished. There were no confirmed sightings afterward, no phone calls, no bank activity, no trace. What makes this case especially difficult is how little time passed between the accident and Maura's disappearance. The window was narrow, measured in minutes. Yet within that short span, Maura Murray disappeared completely. In the years that followed, the case would become one of the most discussed and debated missing person investigations in modern American history. But beneath the theories, the speculation, and the attention, the central mystery remains unchanged. A young woman drove north. She crashed her car, and then she vanished. Why Maura left, where she was going, and what happened after she stepped away from the road remain unanswered. Maura Murray was 21 years old in February of 2004. She grew up in Hampshire, Massachusetts, the fourth of 5 children in a close-knit family. Those who knew Maura described her as athletic, intelligent, and determined. She was competitive, driven, and accustomed to pushing herself. Maura had excelled in sports from a young age. She was a standout runner and later joined the track team in college. Physical discipline was an important part of her identity. Academically, Maura was capable and ambitious. She enrolled at the United States Military Academy at West Point, before later transferring to the University of Massachusetts Amherst. The transition was significant. West Point demanded structure and intensity. Leaving it marked a change in direction. At UMass, Maura studied nursing. She lived on campus and worked part-time to support herself. Her schedule was demanding: classes, training, work shifts. By many accounts, Maura placed high expectations on herself. She wanted to succeed. She wanted to prove herself capable. Friends and family later recalled that Maura could be hard on herself when she felt she had fallen short. Despite this, there was no indication that she intended to disappear. Maura stayed in contact with her family. She spoke with her father regularly. She maintained friendships. Her life, while busy, appeared stable. In the days leading up to her disappearance, nothing outwardly suggested that Maura planned to leave her life behind. There were stresses, as there are in many young adults' lives. But there was no farewell, no explanation, no announcement. Understanding who Maura was is essential to understanding why her disappearance remains so difficult to explain. She was not someone who vanished quietly. She had plans, responsibilities, connections. And yet, on a winter evening in New Hampshire, Maura Murray stepped away from the road and out of sight. In the days leading up to February 9, 2004, Maura Murray's life appeared busy and demanding. She was enrolled full-time at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. She attended classes. She worked shifts as a nursing student. And she continued her athletic training. On the surface, her routine continued as normal. But investigators would later examine this period closely, searching for anything that might explain what happened next. On February 5th, Maura was involved in a car accident. She had borrowed her father's vehicle. Late that night, she struck a guardrail. Police were called to the scene. No charges were filed, but the incident left Maura shaken. Her father later traveled to Massachusetts to help her arrange repairs and look for a replacement car. Over the next few days, Maura continued attending classes and communicating with family. There was no indication that she planned to disappear. However, on the morning of February 9th, Maura's actions began to diverge from her routine. She emailed her professors. In the message, she stated that there had been a death in her family and that she would be away for a short time. This statement was not accurate. No death had occurred. The reason for the message has never been fully explained. That same day, Maura made several phone calls. She contacted lodging establishments in northern New Hampshire and Vermont. She searched for directions. She withdrew a small amount of cash. None of these actions were extreme, but together they suggested intent. Yet Maura did not pack extensively. She did not empty her bank account. She did not leave messages explaining her plans. Her dorm room showed no signs that she was leaving permanently. Books were left behind. Personal items remained. To investigators, this period raised difficult questions. Was Maura planning a brief getaway? Was she seeking solitude? Was she attempting to clear her head? Or was there something else she felt she needed to escape from? What stands out is the lack of clarity. Maura's actions were deliberate but incomplete, planned but not explained. By the afternoon of February 9th, Maura loaded a small number of belongings into her car. She left campus, and she began driving north. Where she intended to go, and why she chose that route, remain uncertain. What is known is that this drive would end on a dark, rural road, and begin one of the most enduring mysteries in modern true crime. On the afternoon of February 9, 2004, Maura Murray left the University of Massachusetts Amherst. She was driving her own vehicle, a Saturn sedan. The car was packed lightly. Some clothing, toiletries, school books. Nothing suggested a permanent departure. Maura headed north. Her route would take her away from Massachusetts and toward New Hampshire. The drive was not unusual in distance, but it was significant in timing. It was winter. Daylight was fading. Weather conditions were deteriorating. As Maura traveled farther north, the landscape changed. Urban roads gave way to rural highways. Traffic thinned. Towns became smaller. Snow lined the edges of the road. Investigators later reconstructed her route using gas receipts and phone records. At one point, Maura stopped for fuel. She purchased alcohol. The amount was not excessive, but it would later become a point of focus. As the drive continued, darkness set in. Road conditions became more difficult. Snowbanks narrowed the shoulders. Visibility decreased. Maura was traveling alone. There is no evidence that she contacted anyone during this part of the journey. No phone calls, no messages, just miles of road. Sometime after 7 p.m., Maura entered a stretch of Route 112 near the town of Haverhill, New Hampshire. This area was remote, wooded, poorly lit. The road curved sharply. At approximately 7:27 p.m., Maura's car left the roadway. It struck a snowbank near a sharp bend. The impact was not catastrophic. The vehicle was damaged but not destroyed. Nearby residents heard the sound. One local woman looked out her window and saw a car stopped on the road. She later reported seeing a young woman near the vehicle. Another witness drove past shortly afterward. He stopped briefly and spoke with the driver. The woman appeared shaken but not injured. She declined help. She said that assistance was already on the way. The witness left the scene. Within minutes, police were called. When officers arrived, Maura Murray was gone. The car was locked. The keys were missing. The engine was cold. There were no visible footprints in the snow leading away from the vehicle. The timing was critical. The gap between the witness leaving and police arriving was brief, measured in minutes. Yet in that short window, Maura disappeared. No one saw her leave. No one saw her enter another vehicle. No one reported seeing her walking along the road. The quiet of the area offered few answers. Just a damaged car, a winter night, and a road that led nowhere. When police arrived at the scene on Route 112, they found Maura Murray's car resting against a snowbank. The Saturn was locked. The keys were missing. There was damage to the front end, but nothing that suggested a high-speed collision. The airbags had not deployed. Inside the vehicle, officers found several personal items: a box of wine, an empty soda bottle, school books. Nothing appeared to have been hastily removed. There was no sign of blood, no indication of a violent struggle. The scene was quiet, dark, cold. Snowbanks lined both sides of the road. The nearest houses were spaced far apart. This stretch of road offered limited visibility in either direction. Officers searched the immediate area. They looked along the roadside. They scanned the surrounding woods. There were no clear footprints in the snow leading away from the car. This detail would later become one of the most debated aspects of the case. If Maura had walked away, where were the tracks? If she had entered another vehicle, who had seen it? A tow truck was called. Maura's car was removed from the scene. At the time, there was no indication that a crime had occurred. The situation was initially treated as a possible DUI walkaway. This assumption influenced the early response. As the night progressed, temperatures dropped. Search efforts continued in the area. Officers expanded their sweep beyond the immediate crash site. Still, there was no sign of Maura. No calls were received from local residents reporting sightings. No one reported picking up a hitchhiker. The next morning, the search intensified. Family members were notified. Maura's father traveled to New Hampshire. Formal search teams were assembled. Dogs were brought in. The terrain was difficult. Snow covered much of the ground. The woods were dense. At one point, scent dogs appeared to follow a trail east along the road. The scent then stopped, abruptly. This detail has been interpreted in different ways. Some believe it suggests Maura entered a vehicle. Others argue environmental factors may have disrupted the scent. What is clear is that the trail did not lead to a discovery. As hours turned into days, the absence of evidence became more troubling. No belongings were found. No confirmed sightings emerged. The assumption of a simple walkaway began to weaken. What had initially seemed like a minor accident was becoming something far more complex. A young woman had vanished in a narrow window of time, on a quiet road, in the middle of winter. And despite immediate attention, she had left behind no clear direction. As the hours passed without any sign of Maura Murray, the search expanded beyond the immediate crash site. What investigators faced was not just a missing person, but a challenging landscape. The area surrounding Route 112 was heavily wooded. The terrain was uneven. Snow covered the ground, masking footprints and complicating visibility. Search teams moved carefully through the woods. They checked ditches. They examined embankments. They searched nearby properties. The weather worked against them. Cold temperatures, wind, snow. All of it reduced the likelihood that clear evidence would remain intact. Law enforcement brought in specialized resources. Search dogs were deployed. Ground searches were organized. Volunteers joined the effort. Despite the intensity of the search, nothing was found. No clothing, no personal belongings, no signs that Maura had been injured or sought shelter nearby. The geography of the area raised difficult questions. If Maura had entered the woods, she would have faced deep snow, darkness, and sub-freezing temperatures. Survival under those conditions would have been difficult. Yet extensive searches of the surrounding woods did not uncover her. This absence fueled speculation. Some wondered whether Maura had left the area in another vehicle. Others questioned whether the initial search assumptions had limited the scope too narrowly. Investigators also examined nearby roads and possible exit routes. They considered whether Maura might have walked farther than initially believed. But again, no evidence confirmed this. The search became a process of elimination. Each area cleared removed one possibility without revealing another. As days turned into weeks, the operation shifted. Active searching gave way to investigative review. Maps were studied. Timelines were reconstructed. Witness statements were re-examined. Still, the landscape offered no answers. The environment itself had become part of the mystery. A place where sound traveled poorly, where visibility was limited, where time could pass unnoticed. The question remained unresolved. Had Maura left the road on foot? Had she accepted a ride? Or had something else occurred in those unaccounted-for minutes? The land kept its silence. As the active search for Maura Murray slowed, attention shifted toward evidence. What little there was examined repeatedly. Investigators returned to the crash scene. They reviewed photographs. They reanalyzed timelines. They scrutinized witness statements. One of the most debated aspects of the case is the narrow window of time between the last confirmed sighting of Maura and the arrival of police. Witness accounts suggest that only a few minutes passed. In that brief span, Maura disappeared. No one reported seeing her walking along the road. No one reported another vehicle stopping. Yet she was gone. The absence of footprints has also remained a point of uncertainty. Snow conditions were uneven. Wind and passing vehicles could have disturbed tracks. Some have argued that footprints may have been missed. Others believe their absence suggests Maura did not leave on foot. Investigators also examined the contents of Maura's car. The presence of alcohol raised questions. However, there was no evidence that Maura was intoxicated at the time of the crash. No breath test was administered. No toxicology report exists. Assumptions filled the gap where data was missing. Another unresolved issue is Maura's destination. She had contacted lodging establishments earlier that day, but none confirmed a reservation. Maps and directions were found, Yet no clear endpoint was established. Phone records offered limited insight. After the crash, Maura's phone was never used again. There were no calls, no messages, no pings that revealed movement. The investigation also revisited Maura's earlier actions: the email to her professors, the purchase of alcohol, the cash withdrawal. Each detail was examined. Individually, none explained her disappearance. Together, they suggested planning, but not clarity. As years passed, the case accumulated theories, but evidence did not. The central problem remained unchanged. Maura Murray vanished in a small window of time, in a place with few witnesses, and left behind no definitive trace. The questions outnumbered the answers, and each unanswered question only deepened the silence surrounding the case. Over the years, numerous theories have been proposed to explain what may have happened to Maura Murray. Each attempts to fill the same gap: the minutes after the crash. None have been proven. One possibility is that Maura left the scene on foot. Supporters of this theory suggest she may have panicked and tried to avoid police involvement. She may have entered the woods to hide temporarily. However, extensive searches of the surrounding area did not locate her. The terrain was harsh. The temperatures were low. Survival under those conditions would have been difficult. Another theory is that Maura accepted a ride. This would explain the lack of footprints and the sudden disappearance. Yet no driver has ever come forward. No witnesses reported seeing another vehicle stop, and no evidence confirmed that Maura entered a car. Some have suggested that Maura intended to disappear voluntarily. This idea is often challenged by the facts. Maura did not withdraw large sums of money. She did not take all of her belongings. She maintained close family ties. There was no clear indication that she planned to leave permanently. Investigators have also examined whether a crime occurred. No physical evidence has confirmed this. No signs of a struggle, no recovered personal items, no identified suspect. Importantly, law enforcement has stated there is no conclusive evidence supporting any single theory. Each explanation accounts for some details, but not all. What remains consistent is uncertainty, a lack of confirmation, a story defined by missing information. As speculation grew over the years, so did misinformation. This has complicated the case further. Separating verified facts from assumptions has become increasingly difficult. Despite this, the core mystery remains unchanged. Maura Murray vanished in a narrow window of time, and no explanation has been established. More than 20 years have passed since Maura Murray disappeared. During that time, her case has remained open. Search efforts have continued periodically. Investigators have reviewed evidence. Timelines have been revisited. Yet no definitive answers have emerged. Maura's family has never stopped searching for clarity. They have advocated publicly. They have supported renewed investigative efforts. They have asked that attention remain focused on what is known and what is still missing. Over the years, leads have surfaced. Some have generated brief hope. None have led to a confirmed resolution. No remains have been found. No verified sightings have occurred. No explanation has been established for what happened after Maura stepped away from the road. Law enforcement has stated that even small pieces of information could still be significant. A detail that once seemed insignificant may hold meaning years later. Until that information comes forward, Maura Murray's disappearance remains unresolved. A case defined not by what is known, but by what cannot be explained. A young woman, a winter road, a brief moment in time, and a silence that has endured for decades.